Good evening, everybody. So, today we will start air and water. In this chapter, you learn explain the importance and utility of various components oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, list various pollutants and means of control for air and water, various sources of water, distinguish between potable and non potable water, explain about purification of water, explain the techniques of softening of water, explain the term surface tension and capillary action, recognize the urgency of water conservation and rainwater harvesting. So let us study about the most important concept, air. So air is a mixture of gases. The non-active element in air is nitrogen. The ratio of oxygen and nitrogen in the air is about 1 is to 4 ratio by volume. So we can say air is basically a mixture. It is neither an element nor a compound. Very important, it is a mixture since it consists of mixture of all the gases. In that we have oxygen nitrogen in a ratio of 1 is to 4 by the volume. Oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide are directly or indirectly useful for human beings, other animals, and plants. So, we all human beings, every organism on the earth require the gases for their survival. Basically, oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide are the most important gases. So, let us study of all these gases. First and foremost, general uses of oxygen. Oxygen is necessary for all living beings. It is the supporter of combustion. Yes. So we cannot live without oxygen. It is impossible. At the same time, it is a supporter of combustion. So what is combustion? Burning of any substance in the presence of oxygen is called as a combustion. So we can say it is a supporter of combustion. Secondly, liquid oxygen, which is also called as the liquid oxidant, is used as oxidant in rockets to burn the fuel. Yes, it is commercially used in the rockets to burn the fuel as a liquid oxidant. Oxygen necessary for aquatic life and for space research and astronauts. Yes, it is also useful for the aquatic life. Almost all the organisms which are living in water, they cannot live without oxygen. And also it is useful for the space research and astronauts. If the astronauts will move on to the space, they have to carry the oxygen cylinders for their survival. So it is very important for the research of space as well as for the astronauts. Now we will move upon to some of the medical uses of oxygen. It is useful for asthma or gas poisoning. So for asthma patients or even for gas poisoning, we use the oxygen. Gas poisoning, basically that is a carbon dioxide poisoning. If there is excess of carbon dioxide accumulation in the body, we go for treatment using the oxygen. Secondly, the oxygen is used as an anesthesia in surgical operations. Yes, anesthesia is very important in surgical operations, so we use the oxygen. Next, we will see some of the industrial uses of oxygen. It is used for cutting and welding purpose. Oxygen is very much useful for the cutting and welding purpose. And also the impurities present in iron are removed by burning in the presence of oxygen. So the impure form of iron, which is called as a pig iron, it is converted into pure form of iron by removing the impurities in it by burning in the presence of oxygen. Oxygen is used for the manufacture of sulfuric acid from the sulfur and nitric acid from the ammonia. Yeah, we can also synthesize some of the chemical agents with the help of oxygen. Some of them like sulfuric acid, that is from sulfur, and nitric acid from ammonia. we can manufacture in the lab. So these were some of the most uses of the oxygen. Let us study some of the harmful effects of oxygen. First and foremost, the corrosion means the deterioration of the metals by an electrochemical process. So very best example for the corrosion we can take is the rusting of iron, right? It is one of the electrochemical process. So the oxygen will lead to the corrosion of the metals. We have seen that is the rusting of iron. Secondly, oxygen combines with almost all the elements to form the oxides. So it doesn't leave any element in the nature stable. It will combine with the elements and result them in a formation of their respective oxides. Say for example, if it is a sodium, it combines with the sodium and forms sodium oxide. Calcium, calcium oxide. So it combines with all the elements to form their respective oxides. So these were some of the harmful effects. Let us study the main uses of nitrogen. Nitrogen subdues the activity of oxygen. In most of the places, we can use the nitrogen in the place of oxygen. So it subdues the activity of the oxygen. The compounds of nitrogen are of vital importance to plants as they help them to manufacture the proteins. So proteins are very important for all the organisms on this earth. So we get these proteins by the help of nitrogen because proteins are made up of basically carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen. So it is one of the component of a nitrogen which is a very important to the plants as well as all the organisms. We'll move on to the next important gas, carbon dioxide. So some of the uses of carbon dioxide, it plays very important role in photosynthesis. So we know what is photosynthesis as the name itself suggests, that is synthesis of some of the energy with the help of sunlight in the presence of carbon dioxide. So plants will take the carbon dioxide and give out the oxygen to synthesize the food molecules by the process called as a photosynthesis. So carbon without carbon dioxide, they cannot synthesize the energy. So carbon dioxide is very important in the process of photosynthesis. Secondly, food preservation. So carbon dioxide plays a very important role in the preservation of food. That is, it prevents the deterioration of the food. Thirdly, solid carbon dioxide, which is also known as dry ice, is used as a refrigerant. So carbon dioxide in the form of solid, it has an application as a refrigerant. It is also used in the preparation of a soft drinks. So we know so many soft drinks. So they basically consist of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is used in fire extinguishers. So the carbon dioxide will put off the burning of fire. So it is used in the fire extinguisher since it is an inhibitor of combustion. So it has much more application in a fire extinguisher. Next, we will see some of the harmful effects of carbon dioxide. So the great loss by the carbon dioxide, that is carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas which leads to the global warming. So our globe is continuously increasing its temperature due to which we experience so many dull effects. It is because of the increased concentration of the greenhouse gas that is carbon dioxide. So the warming up of this earth that is global warming, is basically because of carbon dioxide. So till now we studied about the air and some of the important gases of air, their uses as well as the harmful effects. Next we will see about the water. Water is one of the most important substances on the earth. All the plants and animals must have water to survive. If there was no water, there would be no life on the earth. Apart from drinking it to survive, people have many other uses of water. Yes, we all require water. It is the most important constituent for the survival of the life on this earth. Not only for drinking purpose, even also for other domestic purpose also we require the water. So we can say there is no life on earth without water. Let us study that how this water content is maintained on this globe, that is earth. Very simple answer, it is because of water cycle. So you can see here the diagram at the right side. It gives a clear picture that how the water cycle happens on this earth. So first and foremost, let us see how does the water vapor formation takes place. Evaporation is a process in which water from any source change into vapor state due to heat. So whenever the rain falls on the earth, the water will convert it into vapor. So you can see here that is from the oceans. In the diagram, we have the oceans which is collected here. It is raising up. It is raising up in the form of a vapor by the process that is evaporation. By which process? That is a evaporation. So here water is converting into a vapor state due to the heat from the sun. Due to the heat from the sun, it is called as a evaporation. And even from the plants also some of the droplets will raise as a vapor, which is called as a evapotranspiration. Which is called as a evapotranspiration. In this way, the water gets collects in the form of a vapor. This water vapor will result in the formation of a cloud. So how it is? Cloud formation, that is condensation of water vapor in the atmosphere, leads to the formation of clouds. So here the heated up water gets collected in the form of a vapor. Now this vapor will cools down and condense into the clouds, and the process is called as a condensation. Here we learn a very important concept, that is a dew point. So here what do you mean by dew point? It is the temperature at the water vapor begins to change into water drops. So these water vapor gets collected in the form of clouds. These come down in the form of a water drops at a particular temperature, and this temperature is called as a dew point. So lastly we have rain. So how does we get the rain finally? The falling of these big drops of water from the clouds is known as rain, and the process is called precipitation. So you can see here the clouds are falling down in the form of a rain. So that process is called as a precipitation. So in short, we can say that the water cycle will happen by the three important phenomena. One is a evaporation, condensation, and finally that is a precipitation. So we get this water recycled. The instrument which is used to measure rainfall is called as a rain gauge. Yeah. Very important. Rain gauge is an instrument which is used to measure the rainfall. So rainfall is measured in centimeters. So with the help of a rain gauge, we measure the rainfall in the terms of centimeters. Now let us study what do you mean by humidity. The presence of water vapor in the atmosphere is known as humidity. So atmosphere, when it consists a small content of water vapor in it, it is called as a humidity. Now what do you mean by relative humidity? So relative humidity is nothing but it is the ratio of mass of the water present to a certain volume of air at a room temperature. It is called as a humidity. A hygrometer, we have an instrument called as a hygrometer, is an instrument which is used to measure relative humidity. So we measure the rainfall with the help of a rain gauge, and we measure the relative humidity with the help of an instrument called as hygrometer. Now let us study what do you mean by atmospheric pressure. Very important term, atmospheric pressure. The force of air column acting per unit area of a surface results in a pressure exerted by the atmosphere, and this pressure is called as atmospheric pressure. So what is atmospheric pressure? That is a force of air column acting per unit area. So this air column is from the pressure exerted by the atmosphere. So this pressure is called as a atmospheric pressure. Now we will understand some concepts about atmosphere. So let us study what do you mean by atmosphere. The region of air around earth is called atmosphere. Very simple. So whatever the region of air which is around the earth is called as atmosphere. Now this atmosphere has some of the pollutions. So let us study first and foremost air pollution. So what do you mean by air pollution? Any undesirable changes to air in the atmosphere is called as air pollution. So the agents which cause the pollution, so air pollution, the agents which cause the pollution are called as pollutants. So these pollutants are of two types. What are those? They are primary pollutants and secondary pollutants. Now let us study about the primary pollutants and secondary pollutants. Primary pollutants are the one directly emitted into the atmosphere, which are directly emitted into the atmosphere are called as primary pollutants, whereas secondary pollutants which are not emitted directly into the atmosphere but are formed in air when primary pollutants interact. So they are not directly emitted into the atmosphere but they form in the air when primary pollutants will interact. So let us see some examples of them. So primary pollutants, we have the best example, that is carbon monoxide. So carbon monoxide is produced by the incomplete combustion of the fuels. So whenever there is an incomplete combustion of fuels, we get the pollutant, that is carbon monoxide. So this carbon monoxide is colorless and odorless gas but very poisonous in nature. So carbon monoxide is highly poisonous when we compare to the carbon dioxide. So it is basically produced whenever there is incomplete combustion of fuels. So next we have carbon dioxide. So this is the second primary pollutant. Carbon dioxide is produced by the complete combustion of fuels in motor vehicles and various industries. So it is also produced by the combustion, by complete combustion of fuels, by some of the motor vehicles and also by various industries. Carbon dioxide is colorless, odorless, and non-toxic gas. So carbon dioxide is a non-toxic gas. So next one we have the primary pollutant sulfur oxides. So sulfur oxides are produced by the combustion of coal and petroleum. So whenever we burn the coal and petroleum, the gas produced is sulfur oxides and are also produced in volcanoes. In some of the volcanoes also we have traces of sulfur oxides. Next one, that is nitrogen oxides, especially we have nitrogen dioxide. It is a reddish brown gas with pungent smell. So nitrogen dioxide is a reddish brown gas with a pungent smell. It is also a primary pollutant. Next we have volatile organic compounds, like some of them methane, benzene, toluene, and xylene. So these are some of the volatile organic compounds. Methane is a major greenhouse gas. It is one of the most important greenhouse gas, that is methane. Some of the other primary pollutants like particulate matters. What are particulate matters? These are the suspended particulate matter. That is some of the minute materials which are present in the atmosphere which will pollute the air. They are considered as suspended particulate matters. Lastly, we have the primary pollutant, that is chlorofluorocarbons, that is CFCs. So these are used as refrigerants in air conditioners and refrigerators. So most of the air conditions and refrigerators will emit some of the gases like CFCs, which also leads to the air pollution. They are considered as primary pollutants. Next, we'll move upon to the secondary pollutant. So first and foremost, we have photochemical smog. So this photochemical smog is formed by the combination of smoke which is released into the atmosphere plus the fog present in the atmosphere. Togetherly they form photochemical smog. So the combination of smoke and fog is with the help of sunlight. So it is called photochemical smog. Secondly, we have ground level ozone. So what is this ground level ozone? That is ozone which is released at the ground level. So how it is formed? It is formed by the nitrogen oxide and some of the volatile compounds. Whenever they combine, they result in a formation of ground level ozone. It is harmful for health of humans and animals. So these were some of the secondary pollutants and primary pollutants. Now we will move upon to the sources of water. The natural sources of water are air, rain, springs, wells, rivers, and seas. So these are some of the natural sources of water. So let us study each one of them. So rainwater is considered to be the purest form of natural water, that is distilled water free from impurities. So we all know rainwater, so it is one of the purest form that is free from all the impurities. Secondly, we have spring water. Springs are formed by the percolation of rain water into the soil. So whenever the rainwater penetrates deep into the soil, it results in a formation of a spring water. Thirdly, we have well water. The rainwater seeps through the soil and goes down and is stored over rocks or hard earth crust that results in a formation of a well water. Next, we have river water. So river water, rivers are formed by the melting of snow on the mountain and from the rainwater. So we get the river from the two sides, that is by the melting of snow and as well as from the rainwater, which results in a formation of a river water. Next one, seawater. Seawater is the largest natural source of water. So it is one of the largest source of water. So these were some of the sources of water. Now we will study about the two types of water. One is a potable and non-potable water. What do you mean by potable? Potable water means water which is fit for drinking. Very simple. Water which is fit for drinking, we call it as potable water. And non-potable water, just vice versa, that is water which is not safe for drinking, that is not fit for drinking, that is contaminated, that is called as a non-potable water. So how to convert the non-potable to potable? So we study some of the purification of water to make it suitable for drinking. Let us study some of the techniques. So first and foremost, by the decantation, by the decantation of insoluble impurities can be removed. So you can see at the right side, the very first diagram, that is shows a decantation. Just when you pour the water, the surface water will come down. The hard insoluble impurities, that is you can see the top tumbler, brown surface at the bottom, right? So those are the impurities. So those impurities will remain, can be removed very easily. So this process is called as a decantation. Secondly, we have filtration. By the filtration also, insoluble impurities can be removed. So it is a very, you can say, accurate technique to remove the impurities, that is filtration. So here the next diagram, you can see a funnel, and the funnel consists of a filter paper over which we pour the impure water. So pure water will fall into the funnel, leaving behind the impurities in a filter paper. The process is called as a filtration. So by the filtration, insoluble impurities can be removed. Thirdly, we have by boiling. So what happens by boiling? Bacteria and other germs in water can be killed. Yes, we all know. So whenever we increase the temperature very high, the bacteria and other germs get killed. So it is one of the best method for the purification of water. Lastly, we have by chlorine treatment. So here, what is this chlorine treatment? Small living organisms and bacteria are killed. So here, the chlorine will provide an unfavorable condition for some of the small organisms and bacteria, and they get killed. So this chlorine treatment is done in a laboratory. So these are some of the four techniques for the purification of water to make it suitable for drinking. Now we will understand the other two important forms of water, that is soft water and hard water. Water which forms lather with the soap is called soft water. So very simple definition, the water which forms lather with the soap is called as soft water. Water which doesn't form lather with the soap is called as a hard water. So what is lather? You know, that is a formation of foam. So which forms the lather with the soap is a soft water, which doesn't form lather easily with the soap is called as a hard water. We call the water as universal solvent. Why? Because many substances dissolve in water. Most of the substances present in the nature dissolves in water. So we call water as a universal solvent. So it is very important concept why it is called as universal solvent. Since it dissolves almost all the substances. Yeah, we will see the hard water, conversion of hard water into soft water. As I told, that is soft water in the sense which forms the lather with the soap. So what do you mean by lather? Again, I'll just repeat, lather is nothing but it is a foam, formation of foam. So here, which forms the foam or lather with the soap is called as a soft water. Vice versa is a hard water. We will see the conversion of hard water into soft water. How can we convert? We have two types of hardness. One is a temporary hardness, another is a permanent hardness. So what do you mean by temporary hardness? Temporary hardness of water is due to the presence of soluble bicarbonates of the calcium and magnesium. It is also called carbonate hardness. So temporary hardness is also called as a carbonate hardness. It can be removed by boiling and by soda lime process. So what is temporary hardness? In short, we can say the hardness due to the presence of bicarbonate, soluble bicarbonates of calcium and magnesium. That is calcium bicarbonate and magnesium bicarbonate. If they are present in water, it is called as a temporary hardness of water. Now let us see how can we convert the hard water into soft water. So first and foremost by the technique that is boiling method. So if you boil the hard water, let's say for example the water consists of calcium bicarbonate. We have here calcium bicarbonate, that is CaHCO3 taken twice. So when we boil this hard water, it converts into calcium carbonate, that is CaCO3, that is it dissolves in the form of a calcium carbonate, and water, that is H2O, which is a soft water, plus carbon dioxide, release of a gas called as a carbon dioxide. So by boiling, we can convert the calcium bicarbonate into calcium carbonate, soft water, and effervescence of gas, that is carbon dioxide. We have next technique to convert the temporary hardness into soft water, that is by soda lime process. It is also called as a Clark's method. It is because of the name of a scientist Clark who has invented the method. So Clark's method. What is the soda lime process? Here we add to the hard water, say for example that is a calcium bicarbonate, that is a salt present in water. We will add soda lime, that is calcium hydroxide. What is calcium hydroxide? Soda lime, CaOH taken twice. When we add the soda lime to the calcium bicarbonate, it results in a formation of calcium carbonate, that is CaCO3, plus release of soft water. We will get a soft water, that is H2O. So by the soda lime process, we can convert the temporary hardness of water into a soft water. Next, we have permanent hardness. We learned what is temporary hardness. Let us study about permanent hardness. Permanent hardness of water is due to the presence of soluble chlorides and sulfates of calcium and magnesium. It is also known as non-carbonate hardness. So we also call the permanent hardness as a non-carbonate hardness. It can be removed by addition of washing soda or by the ion exchange method. So let us study how can we convert the permanent hardness into a soft water, that is by the help of washing soda and by the ion exchange method. By the addition of washing soda. So what is washing soda? That is sodium carbonate. What is washing soda? Sodium carbonate. So here we have calcium chloride. From where we get calcium chloride? It is due to the permanent hardness of water. So here calcium chloride, we already studied chlorides of calcium. So this calcium chloride, when it combines with washing soda, that is sodium carbonate, when we add washing soda to the hard water, it results in a formation of calcium carbonate, that is CaCO3, plus sodium chloride, that is soluble form of a salt, that is sodium chloride. So insoluble chloride is converted into soluble salts, and we get what? That is a pure water, that is a soft water. So we'll move on to the next important method of conversion of a hard water into the soft water, that is ion exchange method. Very important. By ion exchange method, we have two types of ion exchangers. We have two types of ion exchangers, namely inorganic ion exchanger, and organic ion exchanger. So let us study how it works in inorganic ion exchanger. So in inorganic ion exchange process, complex compounds known as zeolite, one of the most complex compound called as a zeolite. So what is the molecular formula for zeolite? NaAl Si2O6 H2O. So it is one of a zeolite. So right side you can see the diagram of ion exchanger. So there is a bed of zeolite. There is a bed of zeolite. So what they will do? They will pass the sodium chloride solution. First they will pass the sodium chloride solution in the inlet. So when this sodium chloride will flow through the zeolite, the sodium will combine with the zeolite, leaving behind the chlorine. So we have NaCl. Now Cl will flow out and Na will combine with the zeolite. Secondly, after passing the sodium chloride, we will pass the hard water. So at the right side you have, we will pass the hard water. So when we pass the hard water, the salts present in the hard water will combine with the sodium, which are adhered to the zeolite, leaving behind the soft water. Almost all the salts which are present in the hard water will combine with the sodium, leaving behind the soft water. So here there is an exchange of ions. We are exchanging the ions, that is positive and negative ions. So we call it as ion exchange process. The next important ion exchanger, that is organic ion exchanger. So here water obtained from the organic ion exchanger is free from cations and anions, because here we don't use any ionic compounds as we used in a case of inorganic ion exchanger, that is a sodium chloride. In organic ion exchanger, the water is free from cations and anions, and so it is known as deionized water. It is called as a deionized water, or it is also called as a demineralized water. So very important concept called as surface tension. What do you mean by surface tension? The tension exerted by the molecules of water present on surface layer is called as surface tension. So here, tension exerted by the molecules of water. You can see at the right side a diagram. So there are so many droplets, and I am showing you a single droplet, water droplet, which is sitting on a surface. So it is having a parabolic in shape. So this shape or this tension is created because of the force which is exerted by the molecules of water present on the surface layer. So that is nothing but called as surface tension. So we can say almost all the water droplets have the certain spherical shape. It is because of surface tension. The next important concept we will study, that is capillary action. What do you mean by capillary action? The property of rise of water. Very important. The property of rise of water inside a capillary is called as capillarity, or it is also called as a capillary action. So the rise of water inside a capillary. The best example I can give you is the rise of water from the root to the shoot system in case of plants. So when we put the water to the roots, it will reach up to the shoot system. It is because of the capillary action of the water. So it is one of the important property of the water, that is capillarity. Very important concept. What do you mean by rainwater harvesting? Rainwater harvesting means collecting rainwater on the roofs of buildings and storing it underground. Yes. So you can see at the right side a simple diagram illustrating the rainwater harvesting. So here they are collecting the rainwater on the roof, which is falling on the roof of the buildings, and they are storing it. They are providing some facilities to store it underground for the future use. So this technique is called as rainwater harvesting. So we have so many benefits. So let us study the benefits of rainwater harvesting. First and foremost, converse. It conserves valuable groundwater. Yes, it helps in the conservation of a valuable groundwater. Secondly, we have it reduces the local flooding. So if there is an excess of water, it leads to the flood. So it reduces the local flooding and drainage problems. Thirdly, it decreases the landscaping and property maintenance needs. So whenever there is excess of flow of water, it leads to the loss of the most of fields. So it prevents the landscaping and property maintenance needs. It provides an excellent quality water for many household uses. So we have seen so many places without water. So by the rainwater harvesting technique, it provides excellent quality since the rainwater is a pure form of water. So we get a very good quality of water for many household uses. So lastly, we have it can be used for domestic purposes. Yeah, we can use the water. Without water, there is no activity. So most of washing, cooking, or washing the vessels, we require the water. So it can be used for almost all the domestic purposes. So these are some of the important benefits of harvesting rainwater. So we'll move on to the very important part, that is we'll discuss some question answers. The main source of carbon monoxide is, so we have options: industrial process, is it fuel combustion, or transportation, or is it a solid waste disposal? So which is the main source of carbon monoxide? Okay, any answers out of four? Which is the main source of carbon monoxide? Okay, we'll see the answer. That is, it is option 3, that is transportation. So the main source of carbon monoxide is burning of fossil fuel. So it is in the transportation, there is a burning of fossil fuel. So we can say the main source of Carbon monoxide is transportation. Okay. Which of the following gases is most toxic? So you have four options: carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, or is it sulfur dioxide or chloride? So you have four options. Which of the four is a most toxic gas? Yes, any answers? Carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, or chloride? Okay, we got an answer from Varsha, that is 3, sulfur dioxide. Okay, fine. Yes, it is the option 2, that is carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is a colorless, we have studied. It is a colorless, odorless, tasteless gas that is slightly lighter than air. It is the lightest air. It is toxic to humans and animals when encountered in higher concentration. That is gas poisoning, as we have discussed. Oxygen is used for gas poisoning. So, carbon monoxide will lead to the gas poisoning when it is encountered in a high concentration. Okay. Third one, which of the following gases is present under pressure in soft drinks? Is it oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, or nitrous oxide? So we have studied this. Which of the following gases is present under pressure in soft drinks? So any answers? Is it oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide? Okay. So it is the option 3, that is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is present under pressure in soft drinks. We have studied most of the soft drinks has a component of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide adds that special sparkle and bite to the beverage, and also acts as a mild preservative. It is also used as a mild preservative. Carbon dioxide is an uniquely suitable gas for soft drinks is because it is inert, non-toxic, and relatively inexpensive and easy to liquefy. So because of these reasons, we use the carbon dioxide most of the soft drinks. The most abundant constituent of atmospheric air is, so you have some of the gases out of this, which is the most abundant constituent. Is it carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, or nitrogen? So out of four, which is abundant, that is high concentration. Okay, second option, hydrogen. Okay. Mm. So we have studied about it very first. Okay, it is nitrogen. That is 78% of nitrogen is present in the atmospheric air. So most abundant constituent is option 4, that is a nitrogen. Air is the name given to the atmosphere used in breathing and photosynthesis. Dry air contains roughly, by volume, that is 78.09%. Okay, on the approx we can say 78.09% of nitrogen, 20.95% of oxygen, 0.93% of argon, 0.039% of carbon dioxide, and a small amount of other gases. So this is a composition of air, dry air. So the highest composition is a nitrogen, that is 78.09%. Photooxidation process is initiated by, is it by light, heat, oxygen, or catalyst? Initiated in the sense which will start. Photooxidation process is initiated by light, heat, oxygen, or catalyst. The name itself suggests Photooxidation. Okay, fine. It is a light. The first option, light. Okay, oxidation is a process in which something, that is an atom or a molecule or a substance, loses an electron to something else. So this is the oxidation process. Photooxidation is therefore the process of oxidation which is caused by shining light on it. Often, light can be used to cause a reaction to happen, such as oxidation. The term photo comes from photon, which is light. So here, the name itself suggests, I told you, photo means that is light. So it is the oxidation initiated by the light. The purest form of water is it tap water, rainwater, groundwater, distilled water? Okay, very good. Varsha, the second option, that is a rainwater. Correct answer. So we have the answer, second option, rainwater. Rain is liquid water in the form of droplets that have condensed from atmospheric water vapor and then precipitated. That is, becomes heavy enough to fall under gravity. Rain is a major component of water cycle and is responsible for depositing most of the fresh water on the earth. So we have studied about water cycle. So we can say rainwater is the purest form of water. The amount of chlorine available in water after disinfection is called as, is it called as a free chlorine, residual chlorine, free available chlorine, or combined available chlorine? So after the chlorination, the chlorine which is available in water is called as, is it free chlorine, residual chlorine, free available chlorine, or combined available chlorine? Okay, we'll see the answer. That is, it is called as the option 2, that is residual chlorine. So very simple, the word residual means reminder or that which is left. And as the name suggests, the chlorine residual is the measure of amount of chlorine remaining in the water after disinfection. So after the disinfection, whatever the chlorine is left out is called as a residual chlorine. The process of removing calcium and magnesium from hard water is known as, is it a sedimentation, filtration, flocculation, or water softening? So what we call the process to convert the hard water to soft water, in other way we can say, or removing of calcium and magnesium from hard water. So it is the option 4, that is water softening. Water softening is the reduction of the concentration of calcium, magnesium, and certain other metal cations in the hard water. Hardness ions dissolved in water can cause a variety of undesired effects, including interfering with the action of soaps, the buildup of line scale, which can foul plumbing and galvanic corrosion. So hard water have very harmful effects. That is, it will interfere with the action of soaps, buildup of line scale or foul plumbing, as well as the galvanic corrosion. Air is Is it air a compound, element, mixture, or none of this? So any answer? Air is compound, element, mixture, or none of these? Okay, we'll see the answer. It is a mixture. We have studied very first of the chapter, that is air is a mixture. Air is a mixture since it has many types of gases like oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and other traces of gases in approximate proportion. The instrument used to measure humidity is, so which is an instrument used to measure the humidity. Is it a barometer, hygrometer, lactometer, or thermometer? So which of these instruments is used to measure the humidity? Okay, any answers? Barometer, hygrometer, lactometer, or thermometer? Okay, very good, Varsha. It is hygrometer, exactly. So option B, hygrometer. A hygrometer is an instrument which is used to measure relative humidity. Humidity is the measure of amount of moisture in the air. So here barometer we use for atmospheric pressure, lactometer for the density of milk, thermometer for the temperature, and hygrometer is for relative humidity. Okay, we'll move upon to the conclusion part. In this chapter, you learned explain the importance and utility of various components, that is oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide. We listed some of the various pollutants and means of control for air and water. We also studied the various sources of water and distinguished between potable water and non-potable water. We also explained about the purification of water. That is, we studied techniques of purification of water and also explain the techniques of softening of water. We explain the term surface tension and capillary action. Lastly, we recognize the urgency of water conservation and rainwater harvesting. So these were some of the most important concepts we learned today in air and water. So if you have any doubts, you are welcome. Any queries or doubts this chapter. So please visit edurapid.com site. You have many more questions to practice. Go through the videos. So any doubts you can ask.